Hello. So we just talked about separate is never equal, and this is the start of a text set using the thematic statement of characters that take a stance, but mainly focusing on racial inequality, which then brings me into my next book, which is Can I Touch Your Hair? And it's full of poems of race, mistakes, and friendships. The thing that I love about this book is the power duo for both the author and the illustrator, because the authors, Irene Latham and Charles Waters, they are kind of the main characters in this book, but in child form, because Irene Latham, she is a white female, and Charles Waters, he is a black male. So they use their own knowledge to then portray it into the actual writings. It is written in an own voice, which I think is very, very powerful. But it then continues because Qualls and Selina Alko, the illustrators, they are also a biracial duo, but they are also a couple, so they understand the inequalities of being together, and they know what it looks like, and they're able to illustrate it into the text. Another thing with the authors, they did not know each other before this text. So as they are writing this text about how to start a conversation about race, they are having a new conversation about race within themselves while they're writing this, and now they're friends. So understanding the author's backgrounds really helps students understand the reason for why they're doing this, because they were able, the authors, to learn the lesson that they were trying to teach, which I think is also very important. So another article that we had to read, which I don't have with me right now, but Emily Smith Buster, she talks about how we need to provide books that become springboards for discussions and writing. So it makes you want to think of some big questions when you're reading this text. And I think Can I Touch Your Hair does a really good job of providing big questions, especially about self-identity. Because with, obviously it's about two races, and so you're finding your self-identity within those races, but also within yourself. Because I really enjoyed Charles Waters' contribution to relating back to sports, which I thought was really interesting, because in this thread here, sorry, you have my notes here, but he talks about how people are picking him first for sports because he is black. So when they're playing basketball, they're like, oh, this is our first choice. Then when they see that he's not very good at basketball, they think, maybe we shouldn't follow this expectation. But then it continues, the stereotype continues, and then he's asked to read in class, and everyone kind of groans, and they're like, I don't really know if we should have him read. He's going to be so slow because of what he looks like. But they prove otherwise, which I think is a really good ending to the poem, of the fact that he is a good reader and he read quickly and everyone really appreciated it. So I think the inclusion of self-identity within this text helps students realize that they are more than their stereotype, way more than their stereotype. You could also, when you're reading this book, it kind of teaches you how to ask questions, and I really think it's nice to know from both backgrounds, how they want to be approached. So this is a good book to start talking about how to start these conversations, and how we can continue to bring this critical race theory from Elizabeth Marshall into this text, and think how critical race theorists maintain that racism is mundane and everywhere rather than aberrant and sporadic, which is a very important lesson in this text because it is throughout the entire text. It isn't just random comments, it's how people act. And I think if we see how people are acting, we see racism more often than we actually think that we do. So this book is a great way to have kind of that conversation, kind of understand that racism is not just random moments in our day, it's throughout our day without us even realizing it. So Latham and Waters do a great job of showing us that racism is everywhere and how to overcome this.